So here's a real quick funny story. I'm sick this week. If I sound weird, that's why. And in my desperate bid to take care of myself, I decided to crawl into bed and play Bayonetta. It's a great game, and it helped to distract me from the fact that I wanted to die. But whenever I think of Bayonetta, there's one thing I always forget about: the QuickTime events. Bayonetta's QTEs are exceptionally bad, even by the standards of QTEs. They're small, they can fail to stand out from the on-screen noise, and have an exceptionally small window of time you are able to hit them. It's a blemish on an otherwise brilliant game. But after my third or fourth tantrum about them, I got to thinking, are there good QTEs? The answer I came to was, honestly, yeah. They are unbelievably rare, but they do exist, and given how common they are right now, I think it's about time we sit down and figure out what can make QTEs work. Because it is possible for properly used QTEs to serve a purpose besides a substitution for proper gameplay, but in fact they can be used to improve the core gameplay if properly contextualized. After looking back at all the QTEs I don't hate, I feel their use can be segmented into one of three categories. The first of which I want to look at is narrative. Now, I'm just going to let this play. I'm sorry if you've seen it a million times, but we need to talk about it.
Stop that plane! Wide open!
It might just be because I've been a longtime MGS fan, but no lie. The first time this happened, I literally jumped off my couch and started screaming. Why wouldn't I? Raiden just threw a Metal Gear! And combined with the music and Boris's golden commentary, it was and remains to be the coolest thing I have ever seen in my entire life. But I would argue that there is one more element that makes this scene work so well: the QTE. The use of each button prompt lends itself to the next narrative step in this scene, and I honestly believe it would be weaker without it. Let's break it down. First, you have the initial button prompt that shows up as Metal Gear Ray brings its arm down on you. If you're familiar with QTEs, you might expect this to be some kind of dodge. Maybe you'll sidestep and then go in for a final attack. So you press it, and then, oh my god, did he just parry it? So the next prompt comes up, and on some level you're like, okay, now he's going to dodge it. You press it, he breaks the parry, and then grabs the blade. At this point, all bets are off. You know this is about to go completely off the rails. Then a button mash prompt shows up. You start mashing it, and no way is he actually picking it up, and then he throws Ray. Now the power dynamic of the entire fight has been switched. You have this. Raiden jumps onto Ray's arm, and you start mashing the attack button to slice it into pieces as Boris cheers you on, and it feels great. Finally, it ends with Raiden jumping up and slicing Ray's arm off. As I said before, I don't think the QTE here makes this scene. It would be great without it, but I do feel it does add something here by adding another layer of what's going to happen next with each button prompt. On subsequent playthroughs this might get old, but as a means of setting the tone for Metal Gear Rising, it works fantastically. However, there's at least one example of a QTE existing for narrative purposes that might be better and may actually make the scene. But to talk about it, I need to spoil the end of Metal Gear Solid 4. So if you don't want that spoiled for you, click the link here or in the description. Alright, 3, 2, 1, here we go. If you've played MGS4, you can already guess what I'm going to point at. The microwave corridor. This section requires you to mash the X button so much and so fast that it's honestly physically exhausting. And that's the point. Snake is old, he's in pain, he's exhausted, and he is exerting every remaining ounce of strength that he has to finally end this. This QTE puts you in Snake's shoes. While mashing, there will come a point where you ask yourself, am I seriously not at the end of this hallway yet? And this is exactly what Snake is feeling. All of this results in the player feeling at least a fair amount of sympathy, if not straight up empathy for Snake, which makes the story hit at least a little bit harder. Now, putting narrative aside, let's look at the next use. Thematic. I talked a couple of weeks ago in my Resident Evil 4 analysis about how I feel its QTEs lend to a sense of tension and anxiety, so I won't repeat myself here. If you're curious about that, then go ahead and click right here. Instead, what I want to focus on is a game I don't really like, but has a really cool idea. Heavy Rain. For all of this game's failings, it does have one really clever idea. Dynamic QTEs and dialogue choices. You see, in Heavy Rain, there's no fixed position for the QTE prompts to show up. They wander around, and depending on the character's mental state and the intensity of the situation they're in, they start to move faster, the writing on them gets sketchier and harder to read. This does a fantastic job of expressing the confusion and inability to think clearly that each character is feeling in the moment. And it's a pretty respectable way to systematize making a choice without thinking it through. I can't imagine Mass Effect with this mechanic, but I could very easily imagine something like this in Until Dawn. I think the use of the QTE here is sound, it just, needs to not be attached to a train wreck of a script. Finally, we have proper gameplay, and they can be used well here. Perhaps the best example is Kingdom Hearts 2. Now, Best Guy Ever did a fantastic look at what makes them so good in this game. And if you want a really in-depth exploration of them, be sure to check out his video. In short though, what makes them so strong is that they serve as a way to expand your existing toolset beyond its normal capabilities. Having a command grab in the majority of KH2 would be a waste of a button and resources in terms of animations and balancing. But having the ability to grab this Heartless and use it as a death cannon, that's useful, it raises the skill ceiling, and it feels great. The catch here, though, is most of these QTEs feel like natural extensions to the combat, letting you do things that, if you were the one with the sword, logically, you would want to do. The QTEs in Kingdom Hearts are set up in such a way that they frequently serve as the logical conclusion to what the player would do in real life, given the same strength as Sora. Man, if I were actually Sora, I would pull Sayx's weapon out of his hand and beat him with it. You can do that in Kingdom Hearts 2. And it's looking like, due in part to QTE backlash, you won't be able to do that in Kingdom Hearts 3. And that, frankly, makes me really sad. But Ryan, I hear some of you say, don't you think we've come too far? The stigma against QTEs is overwhelming. Even good QTEs will get derided nowadays. That might be true. But worry not, I have a solution. You see, you can still implement them, even into a well-established action series, with little to no backlash using one simple trick. And that trick is... you lie. I'm dead serious, you lie and you don't make them look like traditional QTEs. You still put QTEs in, but you don't let the player know they're QTEs. To understand what I'm talking about, let's look at what I think might be the only game I've played that has actually done this. Devil May Cry 4. For those of you who haven't played DMC4, here's the deal. The new character in the game, Nero, has all of the classic DMC moves. The sword, the guns, the taunts, but there's one thing that keeps him from being a watered-down Dante. His arm. Pressing circle allows you to grab enemies, and what follows from there varies from enemy to enemy. To be clear though, these aren't just grabs. They are, by all traditional definitions, QTEs. You grab this guy, you mash the grab button, and stab him more. You press the circle at the right time and you grab Kratos' spear. You grab Burial and do... this. Like, look at this and tell me this doesn't immediately become a traditional QTE when presented in this way. These are QTEs, but they aren't framed like them. They're framed as just another move. There are no on-screen prompts. You are left to figure out the proper time and place to use these QTEs on your own. Is the enemy reeling because you staggered them? Boom, QTE. Need to extend a combo? QTE. You managed to flank a guarding enemy? QTE. Plus it feels great because you discovered that. No button prompt showed up manipulating you to do it. And the fact that they never show up in cinematics and that there's a narrative backing for them to be here lends greatly to this illusion. If more games, especially action games, were to frame these mechanics this way, I think not only would more people accept them, but they would allow us to make more robust and rewarding combat systems. I want to make this clear. This is in no way me asking for more QTEs. Despite what I presented here, they are, by and large, an overused, poorly implemented mechanic. However, after 10 years and 2 console generations, I think it's safe to say that they're going to be around for the foreseeable future. As such, we should do our best to make that a good thing, or at least an interesting thing. And who knows, maybe if enough games do that, we can shake the stigma of games that require us to press X to not die. Now I'm gonna crawl back in bed. Pray for me.